In this video, I'll go through the correct way to assemble an EMD safety valve. It consists of 5 components: the black manifold or adapter, the red collar, the white valve assembly, and 2 O-rings. So the first thing I do is put the large O-ring in this O-ring gland inside the female portion of the manifold. You can just hold it in with one finger, gently feed the rest of it in until it snaps into this ring, into the O-ring gland. Run around to make sure there are no kinks and that it's fitting smoothly in that gland. Next, we need to attach the red collar to the manifold. This requires an O-ring to ensure an airtight seal. This one you have to be careful with, as the threads on this collar are very sharp and they can cut the O-ring. Typically hold the O-ring at one of the larger gaps and then pull it around the rest of the collar such that it's seated all the way at the base and none of the O-ring is on one of the threads. If any of the O-ring is on the thread, when you thread it in, it will cut the O-ring and you will no longer have an airtight seal. You can then screw this into the manifold. It should screw in easily. This is not an airtight fit until the O-ring seats. Screw it in pretty snugly. Once it's seated, you should look around the O-ring and make sure it's firmly pinched between the red part of the collar and the black part of the manifold. If it looks like there's a wrinkle or a buckle in it, then you didn't assemble it correctly. Then you can screw in the white valve assembly. This is an MPT fitting, so it does not need an O-ring. It just screws in until it is snug and then is assembled. Again, the key here with one of these is to make sure that O-ring is seated firmly between, or pinched smoothly between the two. Again, unscrewing it, this O-ring has to be seated at the very base of this red collar with none of the O-ring on top of any of these threads. As you can see, they're quite sharp. And when you're putting the O-ring on, be careful that you don't damage it while passing it over these threads. That's why I said I usually start at the wide portion and then stretch it over the rest of the threaded portion so as not to damage the O-ring.